Oop. I feel like I need to start off every episode of the Launchpad by shouting out Jordan Richards for that awesome intro. I absolutely killed it on there. But thank you to everybody who is tuning in for episode 6 of the Launchpad. We've had a crazy few weeks where I've been traveling and then we had a cancellation, took some time off, but we are back today. And all we are talking about today are tight ends. You know, it's one of the hot topics out there, whether you want to draft an early guy, get a mid-round guy, or just wait until the very final end. And we are going to talk about all that today because we've got David Gautieri on here today, who is somebody who wants it engraved on his tombstone that you need a top tight end to compete. So, David, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit to the audience real quickly, let them know where they can find you on Twitter, what you've got going on, and why you feel so passionately about tight ends.
Yeah, first off, that introduction is amazing by Jordan Richards. That was so clean, the intro and the music and everything. Wow. As far as tight ends, I don't know how it happened. I think it was experimenting with taking Jimmy Graham in the second round in his prime, and it just like uncorked something. And ever since then, I've just been an advocate for the top tight ends. It hasn't led me astray yet. So I'm going to keep pounding that table, and I'm excited today. We get to talk about it a little bit. I think won't be as much about the top tight ends. It'll be, I can already tell, I think I'm going to play a little bit of a spoiler role today and kind of try and bring you two back down to earth a little bit with some of these late round tight end flyers who I feel may be undeserving, so to speak. So I'm excited for that, and I'm looking forward to killing some dreams today.
Let's do it. And, last year we had Zach Ertz, who was that guy that was supposed to be one of the premium guys that completely face planted. And then we had Darren Waller, who was the guy that people were saying probably wouldn't be able to repeat the 2019 season he had. And not only did he repeat it, but he actually improved on that. So maybe there are some guys that you can get this year. But before we get into all of that, I want to introduce Derek Brown. Derek is an awesome dude. I was introduced to him a few months ago. I reached out to him to see if he could take a look at one of my articles, and rather than just looking at an article, he ended up hopping on a call with me. We had a drink together. We talked all night. It was a great time. And then a couple weeks after that, you were around for the infamous episode of Open Bar Pod where we started Klugeed. I believe you were an integral part of that. So thrilled to get back on a show with you. Thanks for being here, Derek. Why don't you introduce yourself to anyone that doesn't know who you are?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Dave. This is going to be a blast, man. I mean, I like talking about the tight end position, and yes, unfortunately, to my own detriment, possibly. We'll see. I am back in on the late round guys this year. Yeah, man, I mean, look, it's all the things, all the stuff. I mean, right now it's heating up into grind season for all of us for fantasy. So I'm plowing through content over at FTN Fantasy Daily and FTN Bets. We've got all kinds of stuff. I mean, everybody has seen their timelines today. We just launched a 35-tool stat suite for NFL. I mean, we got Fantasy HQ that is live, and this stuff is all free until July 5th. Got to go check that out. It is insane. Like, Elliot, of course, gets up at the butt crack of dawn, hits me up, and I wake up to Slack messages of, hey, blah, 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 when you're awake. And I'm like, good Lord, he's been up for 2 or 3 hours. And he hits me with all this stuff, and I was like, how do you expect me to, be productive today? All this data and stuff just goes live. I'm like, I can't stop looking at all these stats. I'm like, you do want me to be productive and actually get work done today, right? But this is all to say I am fantastically happy to be here. This is going to be a blast, man. I love talking about the tight end position on a yearly basis. I think that there's so many different ways to look at these guys' situations heading into 2021.
Yeah, I mean, there really are. They're the guys that could break out. And, my kind of mindset, just a quick spoiler alert here, if I can't get one of those top 3 guys in the first 2 rounds, I'm pretty much waiting until round 16, 17, 18 before I'm even looking at a tight end, because I always fall victim for that trap with these middle round guys that just end up being landmines. But yeah, just want to shout out what you guys are doing at FTN right now. I mean, that when you look at who's working over there, it has very quickly become like a who's who of the fantasy world. You guys just keep making incredible additions over there. So love to see what you guys are doing over at FTN. And before we dive in, I want to talk about this real quickly too, because David, when you and I first got connected, I was very green to the Twitter world, didn't have any followers, didn't really know what I was doing, but for whatever reason, you reached out to me, we talked a little bit, and you dropped one of the most interesting pieces of content I've ever seen in my life, where you said that if Tom Brady went to the Buccaneers, you'd eat a shoe. And as we all know, Tom Brady went to the Buccaneers, and you live streamed yourself eating a shoe. Why don't you let people know a little bit about that one?
Ooh.
I'll keep it short and simple. Don't write checks that your ass can't cash. And if you say something you're gonna do, you gotta do it. You gotta own it. And you can't run away from it. So be careful how far you're willing to take things.
Yeah, man, those receipts will come back to haunt you, but props to you for just doing the right thing and following through with the promise you made. But anyway, let's go ahead and dive in. Like we said, there's the top three that everybody knows about: Travis Kelce, Darren Waller, George Kittle. Those are the unanimous top three. And the guy that right now everybody is talking about could be the big breakout would be Kyle Pitts. And nearly every projection that you see getting put out by people right now has him smashing the all-time rookie record. So, David, let's start with you on this question. Right now, the record was set in 1961 by Mike Ditka at 1,076 yards. Do you expect him to surpass that, come close to it, or what are you thinking?
I feel like I'm the resident Kyle Pitts truther of the fantasy Twitter space. So people might not be expecting me to say this, but absolutely not. The rookie record, I mean, for any player, that is unbelievably high expectations. I mean, if you want to say the 17th game, maybe we'd get him, but on a per game basis, absolutely not. And I don't think that's anything against Kyle Pitts. And I don't think I have any issue with him at a tight end 4 ADP in redraft, but I'm not particularly excited about where he's going round-wise. I do think he should be the tight end 4, but you look at the past draft classes of these rookie receivers, and that's how I feel like we have to view Pitts. And even the good ones, they're not touching that record you just talked about for Mike Ditka, which was 1,090-something yards, 70-something yards. Mm-hmm. He'll be in good shape to put in at least 55 for 800, because you look at where he is. Matt Ryan was 5th in passing attempts last year. The year before, he led the NFL. He's thrown 4,400 plus yards in 8 of the last 10 seasons. He's thrown 26 passing touchdowns 8 of the last 10 seasons. So even last year, their number 2 and number 3 most targeted players were Russell Gage and Hayden Hurst. 109 targets and 88 targets. That was with Julio playing 9 games. Julio's out of the picture now. So we talk about the number 2 and the number 3 target. Even if Russell Gage is completely underrated and is like neck and neck with Kyle Pitts year 1, we're still probably talking about 90 targets over a 16-game schedule, obviously, for both of them. And that's like the floor for Kyle Pitts. But back to the ceiling, rookie wide receivers, the last 3 draft classes, look at the names who've hit. The good players. DJ Moore as a rookie, 55, 788, 2 touchdowns. Calvin Ridley, 64, 821, 10 touchdowns. Cortland Sutton, 42 receptions, 704 yards, 4 touchdowns. AJ Brown, 52, 10, 51, 8. DK, 58, 907. Ayuk, 50 for 748, 5 touchdowns. That was in 12 games. CeeDee Lamb, 74 for 935, 5. T. Higgins, 67 for 908.6. Chase Claypool, who was coincidentally kind of in question of how would he be used as a tight end, 62 for 873, 9 receiving touchdowns. So even if Kyle Pitts is really good as a receiver and a top 2 receiving talent in this class, about 65 for like 850 and 5 to 8 touchdowns, maybe double-digit. A couple of these guys did it, but expecting him to go out and break the rookie tight end record, that even if he does well, that's very high expectations. I'm not ready to go that far.
I'm with you, David. Let's get your take on this, Derek. I think you probably expect him to come up short of that rookie record as well, but what do you think is kind of realistic to see from Kyle Pitts as a rookie?
So I don't think he comes close to this record. There's no way, no how. Like, people. I keep pushing back against all the Kyle Pitts love only because his ADP is absolutely ridiculous. Like, we're all baking into, and yes, I don't disagree with him being inside the top 6 tight ends. Don't disagree with that at all. But the fact of, like, he's going at 44th overall right now in current best ball drafts, the players being drafted around him, Julio Jones. And these are all players going within, like, say, 5 picks of him. Julio Jones, Robert Woods, Chris Godwin, DJ Moore, Jamar Chase. These are all wide receivers, man. Like, Tyler Lockett, Cooper Kupp. The list goes on and on. Like, I'm not even considering Kyle Pitts where he's going right now because it's insane. Like, these wide receiver median projections are literally what people are baking in for historic projections for Kyle Pitts the moment that he hits the NFL season. And if history repeats itself, he's going to come up so damn short of that. People are going to sit here and be trying to hold him back vomit for the rest of the season while he's not doing what you think he's going to do. And it's not that I don't like Kyle Pitts. It's that history shows that, yes, he has wide receiver skills. Yes, he's going to be used in the slot and outside. The opposite is also true. He is still going to be used in line, some. He's not going to be Mike Gesicki, Anthony Berkshire. He's not going to play 80% of his snaps in the slot. That's not going to happen. So if we're not, and I know, and I'm not trying to squash David bringing him up as a wide receiver, I think his skills and how we need to discuss his receiving abilities, yes, perfectly fair to talk about him as a wide receiver. But he's still going to be asked to play the tight end position, regardless of whether everybody doesn't want to hear that. It's still a fact. And that transition is tough, man. Like, you look back even just to 2000. 24 tight ends drafted in round 1. 4 of them go inside the top 10. None of these guys, out of all of those 24 players, only Jeremy Shockey and Evan Ingram got over 100 targets. And only Shockey, Noah Fant, Dustin Keller, and Ingram surpassed 500 receiving yards in their rookie seasons. Like, Shockey and Evan Ingram, those receiving depth charts died around them. Calvin Ridley isn't going anywhere unless we're projecting injuries, which if that's the case, I don't know what the hell we're doing. Hayden Hurst is still going to be involved here. Russell Gage is as well. And, like, people are saying, well, how does he fail? I'm going with history, and I'm staying away from this ridiculous insanity that is his ADP right now. If he was going in, say, the 6th round, 7th round, I get it. Fine. Shoot your shot. Go for history. We are baking into him being a monster and just blowing everything out of the water from the NFL. And people want to talk about, okay, well, don't cherry pick your outliers. This is some very, very, very dangerous cherry picking a lot of people are doing with this insane ADP.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think the one thing that would cause me to shift my stance a little bit, we only get 3 preseason games this year. But if they come out in the preseason and we do see him taking, 90% of his snaps out of the slot, then I think that, maybe I can up my projections for him a little bit and maybe he can hit, somewhere close to that ADP. But where it's at right now, we know why the learning curve is steep because tight ends have to do everything a wide receiver does and they have to do everything that a tackle does. So that's why they have that steep learning curve. And it's just, we've fallen for this trap so many times before. Like we fell for it with Noah Fant. We fell for it with TJ Hawkinson. It's just like, when are we going to learn from our mistakes? I think that if you're in a dynasty league, yeah, go out and take Pitts. Like if you want to take him first overall in a tight end premium rookie draft, go for it because you're going to hold him for a couple of years and he's going to develop, he's going to age, and he's going to get better and better and better. But to expect this kind of production from him in 2021 in best ball and redraft is crazy to me. I mean, where he's getting drafted, he pretty much needs to catch 900 yards and 8 touchdowns just to justify the ADP that he's commanding right now. So I'm with you guys. It's fun to get excited, but I've been burned by rookie tight ends too many times in the past to fall for this trap again.
If you want to join, if you want to join the Kyle Pitts party, join it in Dynasty. If you want to join the Kyle Pitts party in redraft, you wait till next year. It's not the year to do it. You're jumping the gun for redraft. Dynasty's got his whole.
Well, because then everybody's going to hate him because they're going to say, "Dear God in heaven, like I bought in."
I don't think it'll be that extreme.
People get really, really married to like players or stay away. Marriage of hate or players that burn them, and paying a 4th round cost for Kyle Pitts it's high.
How bad is the burn though? Because that could still be an advantage at the tight end position. So you can still make a bad pick there and still go on to win a championship with Kyle Pitts as your tight end, even in the 4th round. It might not kill you. It might not help you, but I'm not so sure it's going to absolutely kill you. I don't think it's the right pick. I will have probably 0 shares myself. I think I have 1 share out of about 20 of Kyle Pitts.
I'm over 30 Best Ball Mania teams right now, and I've got him on 1 team.
One.
Yeah.
All
Just
right.
1. And that was actually, I'll be totally honest and frank here. My internet lagged out and I accidentally picked his ass. So I would happily have 0 right now if everything was the way it should be.
Hey, well, at least you got 1. So if he does hit, you could, show that 1 roster off and be like, "I told you guys, I told you should have taken him at 44." What were you guys thinking?
If he blows up, I'll own the L's. Like I will absolutely own the L's about him just smashing and grabbing and stuff like that. But like, I just can't at this price. There's just no way.
Yeah, I think it goes back to. I just want to say one thing about this.
Yeah.
There is a slight difference. I'm new to best ball, but I do believe there's a slight difference between best ball and redraft where you're taking him, and he's a worse pick in best ball as compared to traditional redraft, because part of the value in traditional redraft is not having to choose every week who's going to be your starter between these late round guys. When you can have a best ball format, just insert your starting highest scoring tight end, it removes a lot of that value that even the middle tier of tight ends do provide in a redraft format. So yeah, especially in best ball, he's in a void.
And one other thing I'd like to point out is, Derek, you talked about it, and I catch flack for this all the time because I say I'm going to buy Kyle Pitts after a disappointing season, and everyone's like, "Oh, people aren't going to be selling Kyle Pitts," but we see this too. Like people were selling Noah Fant for cheap, and he was the other guy that was the number 1 tight end, and recency bias is such a thing that you can take advantage of.
Noah Fant came in cheap though. What was Noah Fant's startup ADP as a rookie?
I believe it was 105, 106.
There's always 1 tight end every single year.
That's not.
Well, there's always 1 tight end in rookie drafts every single year that makes it into the 1st round. Like we're talking ourselves into.
But what is the startup? What is that transfer to an actual startup? Maybe they're in a 1st round rookie pick, but they're not being valued where Kyle Pitts is being valued. Even if he does dip, you're going to have to buy high next year. You're not buying low on Kyle Pitts.
I think if you can get Kyle Pitts for a 1st round pick, you've already increased the value on that. If you're able to get a 1st round pick for Kyle Pitts after this season, you've increased your value because unless that's the 101, it's still going to be a better value than what it was this year. So we'll see. All eyes are going to be on Kyle Pitts in the fantasy community. But before we get to some other tight ends, I just want to ask, out of this rookie class, we've got Brevin Jordan, we've got Pat Freiermuth. Are any of these guys worth even, stashing right now on a dynasty roster, or any of them getting you excited at all in redraft? Or is Kyle Pitts really the only rookie that we should be talking about right now? Derek, why don't you start off with this one?
So from a redraft perspective, I have no interest in any of them this year. They're not going to garner the volume. We've seen this time and time again. I'm not willing to, because in most redraft formats, all of these tight ends, you have to try to tell yourself, okay, what's the path to being, and again, we're talking about low bars here, but to being a tight end 1, okay, you got to get 80 to 90 targets. What guy out of this class is going to fall into the 80 to 90 target bucket to be a top 12 tight end? Hell, even be top 15. I mean, maybe we're talking about some guys being like having roles and maybe they're streamer at some time if injuries hit. But at this point of the offseason, none of these guys are making my rosters as far as redraft goes.
I agree with you. David, are any of these guys people that you're interested in? Freiermuth, Brevin Jordan? I don't even know. Are there any other? Those are the only tight ends I really know from this rookie class. Is there anybody else that we should be keeping an eye on?
That's a
we're
red
going to talk about some good deep ones.
Because Jacob Harris should be on your radar, my friend. If you don't know about Jacob Harris by now, you've been asleep at the wheel. Okay, in redraft, forget about him. He's a rookie tight end. Forget about him. Like we're in agreement there. In dynasty, oh boy, we're talking about a whole lot of upside with Jacob Harris, and we're talking about a converted wide receiver. That is like number 1 of like the holy grail of what we look for and hope for and pray for tight ends. Hopefully he was a guy who could play wideout, or at least a tweener. He's got all of the athletic skills, and his college profile, not perfect. but you look into it a little bit more. I read an article a couple of weeks ago. He had a very obscure path. I believe his like second year in college was like his third year ever playing football. He's one of these guys who decided to play football late, was still learning the game, never mind a position throughout college. And then he's got all of the athletic measurements, fourth round draft capital. I mean, the Rams are a potent offense as well. I mean, these tight ends, rookies, I will be monitoring them in redraft. You're absolutely not drafting them. But, I mean, Brevin Jordan, there's not a whole lot of people demanding targets right now in Houston. Jacob Harris, I'm not a believer in Tyler Higbee. I don't know who the number 3 receiver is for the Rams. I will be monitoring him as well. I mean, I'm not drafting them, but I wouldn't rule out a late season surge from some of these other guys. Another guy in Dynasty, really the only other guy for the rookie class I'm keeping my eye on is Kylan Granson, who has had a good productive college profile, has decent enough 40. It's going to be used more as like a tweener, like the Trey Burton role for the Colts. And we saw Trey Burton have a few good games. So I wouldn't sleep on him. I would love to stash Kylan Granson on taxi squads wherever I can.
Yeah. And I got to say, man,
Dynasty rabbit hole. I've got some names then.
No Gray? Who else you got there?
No.
Let's talk about it.
Not
Let's
Noah
throw him out
Gray.
there.
No. I'm not going Noah Gray. David's reading off my sheet here, man. I was going to sit here and talk about all my love for Jacob Harris, dude. I mean, the guy is fantastic. I mean, 6'5". He's going to put on some more weight, but 219 coming out. His pro adjusted day 40 was 4.4. 91st percentile agility score. Like, if he hits, he is going to hit massively. And big shout out to the Rams analytic department, which if you're reading all the stuff coming out of Rams camp, had a big hand. And I want to shout out Sarah Bailey here, who works in their analytics department over for Los Angeles. She is awesome. One of the quotes that came out for me, like that I was reading through all these things over at The Athletic, that she did a study over the past few years looking at later rounds and switching positions and tight ends and stuff. And her exact quotes, I look at the probability of playing, and when switched positions from wide out to tight end, he increased his probability, being Jacob Harris, of hitting by almost 20%. So if we're talking about this is a smart team doing smart things and smart decisions, and I know everybody wants to shit on the Rams because they trade away their draft picks, they get veterans and stuff like that. They're incorporating analytics, people. They're doing smart things by shooting their shots late and taking the upside flyers, just like we're doing in fantasy on side speed freaks. Jacob Harris, if he hits, is going to be massive in the league. So I've got him in almost damn near every dynasty league that I have. I've picked him off the waiver wire in some, or I've traded into, and those are always weird. Those are weird moves to make, to try to trade into a rookie draft to get a 4th or 5th round pick, because people are like, oh, I want this, I want that. I'm like, it's a damn 4th round pick. What do you mean you want this? Like, come on, man. It's a 4th round pick. No.
Here's
I'm not giving
$3
you next
in
year's
fab.
second for a 4th. Are you insane? Like, those trades are always interesting to propose. But to say that I've got all the Jacob Harris in the world, so love the call by David. But the guy that we are not going to get up out of here by talking about dynasty stashes is Hunter Long, man. Like, why in the hell are people not talking about Hunter Long more? Gesicki's going to be a free agent after this year. Devontae Parker can be cut, and he's freaking 28. Will Fuller's on a 1-year deal. In Miami, they paid up. They used the draft capital to get him. You look at his athletic profile, very comparable to Mark Andrews. You look at what he did at Boston College. Like, the guy was uber efficient. 20th and 4th over the last 2 seasons, and all tight ends with 25 or more targets and yards per route run. Hunter Long is a guy that's gone in the 4th round of some rookie drafts. He's on the waiver wire in some of your leagues. You need to be picking up Hunter Long right now, because there is a way, and maybe Miami pays up and they go and draft a wide receiver next year. That's probable. That happens. Okay, fine. You're also talking about Hunter Long will be in his sophomore season. There is a way in this range of outcomes where he walks into the 2nd spot in that target totem pole in Miami as soon as next season. And there's no way we're not going to discuss Hunter Long, because I absolutely love him.
I've heard, Troy King is obviously a Miami Dolphins fan, but he's talked about Hunter Long a lot, and he's made pretty much all the same points that you are, Derek, that he can really walk into a situation next year where he can see a hefty share of targets. So we've talked a bunch about this 2021 class, but let's talk about the 2020 class a little bit, because there's two guys coming out of that class that I think are budding stars that really showed some flashes last year and could be posed for a breakout this year. I'm talking about Chicago Bears Cole Kmet, New Orleans Saints Adam Troutman. Out of these two guys, who are you ranking higher in Dynasty? David, why don't you start us off here? Cole Kmet or Adam Troutman?
Dave, it really hurts me that you called these guys budding stars, because I'm going to come out and say the complete opposite thing, and that these guys are
Lord.
just guys. At best,
Lord.
budding stars.
Lord.
I mean, are we?
No.
Did we see?
Lord.
What did you see last year that I didn't? I mean, go ahead and tell me some. I can go first if you want, but I would like to hear some positive things.
Lead it off, please.
I'll go first, but I'm going to warn you guys. It's going to be like Eminem and Papa Doc and 8 Mile. By the time I'm done, you guys ain't going to have nothing left to say about Adam Troutman.
You're going to hate that you eventually hand me this mic. I'm just going to throw it out there.
It's going to be a hot mic when you get it. It's going to be
ahead.
a hot. Let me take a sip of water real quick before
This
we
ain't
get
mom's
to it.
spaghetti, bro. Better be ready.
Oh, mom's spaghetti coming. Adam Troutman, what I see when I look at Adam Troutman is red flag after red flag after red flag after red flag after red flag, from start to finish. And let me pull out the notes, because I got quite a few notes.
Is David colorblind? I just got to ask that before he gets while he's getting his notes.
I've got
together. Is
blue
he
notes.
colorblind?
I've got pink notes. I've got red notes. I'm not colorblind, but I am color aided. So
I just heard that red's supposed to be like a green flag that we're waving.
This is Adam Troutman. It's all red. It's all red. All right.
Okay.
Out of the top 24 tight ends last year, let's just start of one stat. 0 of them ran slower than a 4.75. What does Adam Troutman run? A 4.80? And it ain't just the 40. Let's look at the entire prospect profile, all right? Adam Troutman, where does he come from? He comes from Dayton. Dayton? That is an FCS or FCS. I get the two confused. The lesser one. It's the lesser one. I hope you guys know about some academic issues, or maybe he had some drug issues, some character red flags. If not, maybe he just wasn't that good, and it is a lot more indicative of his talent level, the reason that he went to Dayton, okay? Did he have a good dominator at Dayton? Maybe you'll throw that out. I'm sure you will. It's one of the only good points linked to him. Of course he did. He went to Dayton. You don't exist in the NFL from a small-time school as a tight end without dominating. You wouldn't have gotten to the NFL if you didn't dominate a school like Dayton. So that doesn't mean a whole lot to me. Other than that, it's more red flags. He broke out late. 20.6 is 66 percentile. We'll give him, say that's all right. Dayton. It was at Dayton. Yards per reception, 13.1, 54th percentile. That ain't great. The 40-yard dash, again, we talked about it. 0 top 24 tight ends ran that slow last year. He was drafted with the 41st pick in the 3rd round. That's a 4th round pick. That's with all the compensatory picks. He didn't have great draft capital. Look at the production as a rookie. 15 for 171, 11.4 yards per reception. You could triple that and he wouldn't hit 50 receptions. You look at the way he got to it. One of those receptions was a 41-yard reception on a completely blown coverage. I looked it up on YouTube to see what that 41-yard reception was. Completely blown coverage. I believe it was against the Vikings. Nobody near him. The other 14 receptions, 130 yards, 9.2 yards per reception. This is not good for a guy who's looking like the 4th or 5th option in his passing game. He had a 4-yard A dot. That is indicative by the yards per reception. You look at the wide receivers on the team. Michael Thomas, number 1. Alvin Kamara is clear number 2. He's not leaping Traquan Smith in the pecking order. You look at what Traquan's done. That's very, very, very unlikely based on their roles and their production last year. Marquez Callaway was a rookie last year. as well. He outproduced Adam Trautman. He only played in 11 games. He put up 21 for 213. So the evidence would suggest that it's Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, Traquan Smith, Marquez Callaway, and then Adam Trautman as the fifth option as a non-explosive player with a 4.8 40, who I'll give it to you. He's got a good agility score. He did well in the shuttle. I heard this about Ian Thomas last year. Well, he's not fast, but he had a good agility score. Well, it doesn't matter because he's used in a low A-dot role. He's a good blocker. He was one of the top graded blockers in the league, which means he's going to be a block and release valve as behind all these others. I wouldn't be surprised if Deontay Harris out-targets Adam Trautman this year. He did last year, 25-16. Latavius Murray out-targeted him. He had 26 targets last year. I mean, I don't see any upside. I've heard this before with Saints tight ends. You remember Josh Hill? Year 2, he put up 25, 226, 3 touchdowns. He was an undrafted free agent. He was a little bit faster too, though, 4.7, 140. He also had a great burst score. What happened the next year? 16 for 185. He was a backup to Ben Watson. 4 wide receivers on the team out-targeted him and 2 running backs. Sean Payton is not going to force the ball into Adam Trautman's hands because they don't have a lot of talent behind Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara. He has shown repeatedly in the past he will spread the ball around. I'm knocking my water bottle over now. I'm getting started. He will spread the ball around. I don't see any out. I've seen Adam Trautman go ahead of Evan Ingram, Jonnu Smith, and Gerald Everett in underdog draft. It blows my mind. Evan Ingram has averaged over 11 points per game in 3 out of 4 years. He could be the second. He's looking like the second target on his team. I mean, Jonnu Smith could be the first target on his team. Gerald Everett is the clear third with Russell Wilson, who's threw 40 passing touchdowns last year and 30 straight in 4 straight years. If you want a guy like Adam Trautman, you can take Blake Jarwin as the 5th potential target on a potent passing offense 6-7 rounds later with your last pick. Adam Trautman going in the 11th, 12th round absolutely boggles my mind. I am so far out that I don't know if you can be out any further. I don't even know what to compare it to.
David, I love the passion. We know that you are off of Adam Trautman, as off as you could possibly be. Now, Derek, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're a Saints fan, right?
Yep.
All right. Let's hear it from you. Why do you think Adam Trautman is going to be a little bit better than the picture David is painting here?
So, for one, what we're talking about as far as 40 times and stuff like that, I want to see agility. I want to see burst out of it. Like, we're splitting hairs a little bit to say, okay, guy runs a 4.7 versus like a 4.8. I mean, 4.75, like really, is that fifth, like that 0.05 of a second really making the big difference when you're in the open field? For a player that you talked about, okay, his agility score is good. It's 95th percentile, so we're kind of talking about it's not good. 95th percentile is really damn good. And you're talking about a player that, yes, okay, he got 16 targets last year. As a rookie, we just got off of a conversation when we talked about rookie tight ends not producing in the first year, but now we want to talk about Trautman, and we want to use that conversation against him. It feels like we're talking out both sides of our mouth a little bit. So to say that he wasn't good last year because he didn't have a lot of targets is not to say that he wasn't good. He secured 15 of those 16 targets, had a 130 passer rating when he was targeted, had 1.5 yards per route run. You look over the last few rookie classes, a few of these guys that hit above, and a lot of these rookies, like we're talking about tight ends, they don't get a ton of volume in their first year. So you're looking, okay, were they efficient when they did get targeted? What did they do with the ball? Some of the guys in previous rookie draft classes, just to name a few, tight ends 15 or more targets that surpassed 1.4 yards per route run in their rookie seasons. Noah Fant, TJ Hawkinson, Mark Andrews, Chris Herndon is on this list. We could all talk about Chris Herndon for days about how he's squandered everything and all the talent. Dallas Goedert, George Kittle. Do I need to go on? Oh my gosh, Evan Ingram makes this list because we were just talking about how good Evan Ingram is. We're talking about how Adam Trautman doesn't have opportunity or he's not going to do anything with it. You got Jared Cook that was 19th in routes run amongst the tight end position. Who the hell is Adam Trautman competing with for routes run on the Saints roster? Nick Vannett? Hell no. Tommy Sweeney? Again, let's see the hell no. That's not going to happen. Nick Vannett's not good at anything at this point in his career. Trautman proved last year that he can block. If he could do that, he's not coming off the damn field. So if he's going to be running routes, he's going to be playing a ton of snaps, which you could make the argument that Jared Cook can't do anything but run routes. So does he come off in running situations? Yes. Is Troutman going to do that? Probably not, considering one, the roster, and two, his ability of what he showed when he was running routes. So he's going to be a 3-down guy, going to garner up the snaps, and I get that Josh Hill didn't pan out. That's fine. That's all great. I'm not going to sit here and put bad signal on Josh Hill onto Adam Troutman on a team that over the last 3 seasons has targeted the tight end position 16.9%, 18.6%, 17.4%. As much as I love Traquan Smith, at this point in his career, we're talking about 4 years, 3 years, all these different seasons of not garnering a ton of volume. Why is that? Because, yes, he's been uber efficient, and I love Traquan Smith. Uber efficient when he's been targeted. But we're talking about they needed pass-catching options behind Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara. Then why the hell, if he's been efficient, haven't they utilized him? Is there something there? With Adam Troutman, he didn't make the field a ton last year, but he was a freaking rookie. We talked about this. We've gone through all of this. This year, there's a path to playing time for him. Talked about the target shares. You look at, like, tight ends 8 through 12. Yes, Noah Fant got a 20% target share in his offense last year. TJ Hawkins got 17.8. Gesicki, 16.4. Goddard, 16.9. Hunter Henry, 17.7. If Adam Troutman can get in this 16 to 17% target share range, he can fall with touchdown equity into the bottom tier of tight end ones this year. He's still, yes, his ADP is going up. He's still being drafted as a mid to low end tight end too. At that cost, yeah, I'm still in. I was in way before when he was going as tight end 24. I'm still in on the now when he's going as tight end 16. In an offense that, yes, they have opportunities. I don't give a care if Winston or Hill is going to be the quarterback. This is still going to be a top 10 scoring offense in the NFL. He's going to play snaps. He's going to run routes. If he's running routes, I care about Adam Troutman. And I don't care that he ran a 40 that was 4.7 versus 4.8 right now. Doesn't matter to me. Are you going to break tackles? Were you efficient with the opportunities you were given previously? Yes. Yes. Let's go. All Adam Troutman. Here for it.
I like it. I think both of you guys make some great points, and I don't want this entire show to delve into an Adam Troutman debate.
Oh no, because we got Cole Kmet to talk about next.
We got Cole.
No.
I will say one thing. I will use your own words against you because
you're on a 30-second clock, David.
30. Give me 20 seconds. Give me 20 seconds. Even your rose-colored projection, you said he could fall into the back end of the tight end ones, going as tight end 16. You can make so many more higher upside picks than a tight end 16 potentially landing as a tight end 12 at that ADP.
Who are you getting this higher upside in the round 12 range? Tell me.
Gerald Everett, Jonnu Smith.
I'm not against Gerald Everett. I'm here for that. Jonnu Smith, we could talk about that all day.
Pass on round 12. Takes a different position and take one later. You
Gerald Everett's getting a lot of steam. He's going to be right there. I've seen him go ahead of Troutman in recent drafts. I've seen him as high.
It's positional. Take a different position with real upside than a tight end 16 who maybe turns into tight end.
All right. So let's switch with the other guy from this class that I want to talk about, who is Cole Kmet, who I also think that David doesn't like, a lot like Adam Troutman. And what I saw from Cole Kmet, he's not somebody with blazing speed or blazing agility, but he's a tight end that can really do it all. He can block inline, he can get out there. And the thing that really kind of blew me away was that he just was looking like a veteran, the way that he was shedding tacklers and getting open last year. He looks like he plays so much older than he actually is. He didn't look like a rookie tight end. By the end of the season, it looked like he had already progressed quite a bit. So I'm excited about Cole Kmet this year. And David, I know you aren't, so we'll start with you again. Why aren't you excited about Cole Kmet?
You guys are going to get the hot mic approach. I feel bad because I want you to be able to say some nice things before I just completely annihilate him from my perspective. And to give you a little bit of background on my perspective, where I'm coming from, I actually liked Cole Kmet, going into this offseason, coming off of last year. And then I started looking at my process, and I was looking at Jax Falcone's anatomy of a dynasty tight end, top 16 dynasty tight end. And it's kind of just collecting the entire database of these players who make it into the top 16. And it's a lot of these are the correlative metrics from right off playerprofiler.com, excuse me. And I decided, all right, I'm going to chart all of these metrics for my top 30 tight ends. And I'm going to just see who's good at what, who's got a bunch of green, who's got a bunch of red. And I got around to charting Cole Kmet. And I started wondering why I was excited about him. Like, I started thinking I got shiny new toy syndrome with Cole Kmet. And I was just, sick of the old guys who disappoint me, on to the next guy who will disappoint me. Because when I look at the metrics that I've charted, there is really absolutely nothing to be excited about outside of his round 2 draft capital. And I will say round 2 draft capital is good. It is a predictive metric, draft capital. So that gives him at least a solid chance at being decent. But when you look at the upside, 6'4", 262, we're looking at height and weight. 262 is heavy. That is very heavy for a guy who's 6'4" at tight end, shows up in the 40, only runs a 4.7 40. He has a good vertical, which is good.
I thought 4.7 was good, right? Just saying.
Not in my book. Not in my book. I want to be.
You just said it was a top 12.
I don't split hairs between, or I do split.
Sorry,
hairs
go ahead, David. My bad.
It's all right. 4.7 is not great. I want 4.6, and I will split hairs between a 4.6 and a 4.7. In 4.7, it's average. I'll give it to him. It's average. It's not great. It's not completely like, oh, he's awful. But it's average. It's yellow. He was not a dominator in college. 20.8% dominator. That's not great. That's yellow. He didn't break out early. He had a bad yards perception in college. 12 yards perception. That's red. That's a lower percentile number. His catch rate is 66 percentile. All right. He didn't do much as a rookie. 4.1 fantasy points per game. That's a big one. Is the fantasy production in the NFL. We want to see it by year 2. This is going to be a big year for him, but there's not a whole lot to project for. He doesn't have the athleticism to have a high yards per reception, to make plays for himself. He doesn't have the speed. He had 28 receptions for 243 yards last year. That's 8.7 yards per reception. He's looking like a glorified red zone threat. The problem is Jimmy Graham is still on the team. He was 5th in red zone targets last year. Not 5th on the team, 5th in the NFL in red zone targets last year. He had 19 red zone targets. He caught 13 of them for 7 touchdowns. He ain't that bad in the red zone. So Cole Kmet, he's got a rookie quarterback. I love Justin Fields. I'm not projecting to be a top 10 or top half would be nice for a passing offense. Not going to catch a lot of passes. Going to have a low yards per reception. Jimmy Graham's there to steal the touchdowns. I don't hate his ADB because he's basically free, but I don't want him anywhere in a redraft format. Maybe best ball because you took Kelsey, Waller, or Kittle as like a bye week filler with your last pick. That's about the only thing I would expect out of Cole Kmet this year.
So I do agree with you heavily on the Jimmy Graham thing. I was moving Cole Kmet into that tight end 1 conversation, but the Bears bringing him back for $7 million shows that they do have some sort of commitment to him. I think it could help with his long-term development, sort of a mentorship role from Jimmy Graham. But I agree with you that it does cap his upside for 2021. Derek, do you have anything to add about Cole Kmet here?
I mean, the thing about Cole Kmet is, one, yes, he's free. I mean, even if people are talking about Cole Kmet in dynasty circles, he's not being traded for a lot. Like, you're not giving up to get a lot to get him, and especially in redraft, he's being outside a lot of different circles. I mean, right now in best ball, he's tight end 23 right now. And we talked about, yes, Jimmy Graham was 5th in red zone targets amongst all pass catchers in the NFL. This is also a Chicago team over the first 11 weeks that was 1st in red zone passing rate. They could keep Jimmy Graham all they want. What we saw was Cole Kmet down the stretch was running more routes than Graham. So can we project, is it even in the range of outcomes that, even though, yes, Graham is still there, that Cole Kmet could take over this role this year? Considering he took over the routes last year, if he takes over the red zone targets as well, the touchdown equity is going to be there. Am I going to sit here and tell you, paint a beautiful picture about, is his yards per route run great? No. But we're not paying up for Cole Kmet. He's not going near the top 12 tight ends at all. And if he seizes that number 1 role in tight ends for Chicago, if they're saying, okay, we're done with Dusty Jimmy Graham, if he takes the back seat for a player that weeks 11 through 12 ran the 11th most routes amongst all tight ends in football, 50% in the slot or out wide over that stretch. For a tight end that's free in best ball, he's going in pick 170 range. Yes, give me Cole Kmet for the touchdown equity alone and the routes. Because I'm not going to sit here and say that one Grandpa Jimmy can stay healthy for a full 17 games. He's going to stay the main man, considering that we saw Chicago integrate Komet down the stretch. Could he take another step in that integration this season for a tight end again? That's free. Yeah, buy me in for Cole Komet.
And I'm with you, and that's why, like, we saw it last year. We saw the change of guard right before the bye week where Cole Kmet took over as the team's tight end one. And then you see, oh, wow, the Bears can cut Jimmy Graham and save $7 million. And, of course, they did what the Bears do and made a boneheaded front office decision, and they cut all-pro cornerback in Kyle Fuller, and they kept Jimmy Graham around. I think it's inexcusable, but it is what it is, and Jimmy Graham is going to be an annoying thorn in the side for Kmet owners. But anyway, let's keep trying to run through this a little bit. I'm just going to throw two names out there right now, two guys that I think everybody's kind of expecting to, just finish right behind that big three. But I want to ask, Mark Andrews and TJ Hawkinson, are either of these guys going to threaten the big three and work their way into that conversation this year? Derek, let's hear it from you first.
I think Hawkinson's got a better chance to do that than Andrews. I think Andrews has got more competition around him. I'm unabashedly a massive Rashad Bateman fan, so I think that he can steal a ton of targets for Baltimore this year. So I think Hawkinson's got a great chance. I mean, I heard this discussed the other day, and I'm kind of coming around to it. What's the big difference in opportunity and target share possibilities for Hawkinson, even if you want to talk about it? Could you see it in his range of outcomes to be somebody like Darren Waller? Bad team, horrible situation. He gets 25+% target share, and in his third season, we see him vault for 700 receiving yards to 900 to double-digit touchdowns, hell, even 7 or 8. It's in his realm of possibilities, man. I think there's a possibility, and Detroit's going to be absolutely god-awful. They're going to have to throw the ball this year.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that, because they don't have any wide receivers there, and we know that Jared Goff doesn't have the ability to push the ball down the field. So I think that between DeAndre Swift and TJ Hawkinson, I think one of those two players is going to blow their ADP out of the water. My fear is I don't know who it's going to be. I don't know if DeAndre Swift is going to lead the team in targets. I don't know if TJ Hawkinson is going to lead the team in targets. I think one of those guys is going to have a great season, and I think one of them is going to be the odd man out. And I don't know if it's going to be Hawk or if it's going to be Swift. So I'm just kind of avoiding both right now because they're commanding some pretty high draft capital. But David, same question to you. Mark Andrews, TJ Hawkinson, which one of these guys do you think has the ability to crack the top three this year?
I think this is a little bit of a trick question for me because my answer would be to fade both and to just take no fan 2 to 3 rounds later. But I would say TJ Hawkinson has the better chance than Andrews. I don't think it's anything more than a hair split because there is a major difference in the type of passing offense we're talking about here and the productivity of the passing offense. And I'm very out on TJ Hawkinson both in Dynasty and in redraft because I don't think the Waller comp is fair at all. Maybe from a market share percentage of the passing game, I can hear that. Yep. I don't disagree.
That's how I'm approaching it. Yeah, it's target share.
But in terms of what he can do with it, he is nowhere close to a Waller level receiver, and he is nowhere close to a George Kittle level receiver, which is the comparison I often hear. We're talking about, again, a 4.7 40 compared to a 4.50 or 4.52 or something for George Kittle, 4.46 for Darren Waller. We're talking about a guy who last year was pretty much the 1B to Marvin Jones, was already top of the pecking order with Matthew Stafford as his quarterback. That resulted in about 100 targets, 67 receptions, 723 yards, and a handful of touchdowns, 11 points per game for fantasy. Sure, do I think he can see more targets this year now that the receiving core is a little bit worse now that Marvin Jones is gone? But, I mean, they add you could argue their wide receiver 2 and 3 are both upgraded. So the whole receiver corps as a whole, I don't know it got that much worse. It was already amongst the worst, if not the worst, last year. So a few more targets. But now they're coming from Jared Goff and not Matthew Stafford. So I expect him to be less efficient with those. I mean, we look at the yards per reception. He's been under 11.5 in each of his first 2 years. And that's directly because of the 4.74. He doesn't have the speed and the natural athleticism to make these chunk gains that a Darren Waller, that a George Kittle could make. So best case scenario, you're hoping for peak Zach Ertz, which is 90 receptions, 900 yards, just at 10 yards a reception, and he gets into the end zone enough times, which can happen. And I do think that could happen. But I do think there's a lot more downside of that not happening and him hitting maybe 75 for 750 and not great. I don't think it's going to be worth passing up the receivers in that range. For
I think that's a great point. He just doesn't have that yak ability that you see from some of these other elite tight ends. I mean, just watching Hawkinson play, he catches the ball 6 yards in front of the line of scrimmage and then just instantly falls over. Like, that's his game. Like, he doesn't rip off those big chunk plays. So I think that does limit his ceiling. But let's talk about Robert Tonyan, because he was a guy that actually did finish in the top 3 last year, only because of George Kittle's injury. But he had this unsustainable touchdown rate. For the sake of conversation, let's pretend that Aaron Rodgers is going back to Green Bay this year. Where are you ranking Robert Tonyan on an Aaron Rodgers-led Green Bay Packers team this year? David, let's start with you here. Where do you have Robert Tonyan ranked?
It's tough because I don't have him ranked with the assumption Aaron Rodgers is back in Green Bay right now. And I think that will be to his benefit if he does return, because the ADP is starting to slip. And obviously the touchdown regression is inevitable, but he could still finish second on the team in targets. I mean, This was his first year really starting last year, and they're just starting to figure out ways they can utilize him. So if Aaron Rodgers returns and he's going around and you give me Robert Tonyan or Adam Troutman in the 12th round, I'll tell you which one I'd be taking. I would prefer Robert Tonyan because I think he's already shown an ability to command targets from his quarterback. Aaron Rodgers might not throw 50, 48 touchdowns every week. He's going to throw a lot if he's back. So it all depends where the ADP settles upon a Rodgers return.
Yeah, I think that, you can just write it in pen that his touchdown rate and his efficiency is going to drop. But I think that them committing more money to him next year than he's made in his entire career up until this point shows that they're going to have him, be a bigger part of the offense. Derek, what are you thinking? Where are you willing to rank Tonyan if Rodgers comes back?
Rodgers comes back, he'll be a low end tight end 1, tight end 10 to 12. I mean, without Rodgers, top 15 or so. I mean, again, that's a really low bar. I mean, we didn't see him command the volume last year. His efficiency was otherworldly. I mean, however you want to dice it up, but we need to discuss the fact of how he converted how many those opportunities. Amongst all players with 11 or more red zone targets, only Adam Thielen converted more of his red zone targets into touchdowns at a higher rate. It's not even saying, okay, baking in regression, that's otherworldly efficiency based off the volume that he got. So if he doesn't get a bump into the 80-90 target range, it's going to be hard for him to come back as even a tight end 1 right now. I'll probably rank him somewhere in that 10 to 12 range, but I mean, again, the fall off's real. There's a bunch of guys that make that range, and we mentioned Gerald Everett's name a lot. He's firmly in the same kind of conversation. Love Gerald Everett. So yeah. I just can't be that damn high on Tonyan. I just don't think that he is going to command the type of target share that's going to push him any higher than that.
So I want to. We're running low on time, but one question I really want to get to is, the Patriots splash by bringing in Jonnu Smith, and they brought in Hunter Henry. And right now, when you look at Fantasy Pros expert consensus rankings, those guys are neck and neck, right next to each other in the rankings. So David, we'll start with you on this one. But who do you think is the guy to have on the Patriots team? Is it Jonnu Smith or is it Hunter Henry?
Oh, it's absolutely Jonnu Smith for me, without a question. I mean, I think I've been pretty well documented about favoring the athletic tight ends who kind of fit the mold of the top tier, who couldn't be in the top tier without this sort of athleticism, to be frankly honest. So that gives him a chance to make explosive plays, number one, to have a high yards per reception, which means if he is getting the same number of receptions as these other tight ends, it can go for more yardage, potentially more touchdowns. That is a concern, is the touchdowns. I think it's going to take a switch to Mac Jones over Cam Newton to kind of change the way the offense functions. But I also think that's very possible this year. And I don't think Cam is completely, utterly washed. I mean, it's tough to take last year as an accurate assessment considering the receivers he had to deal with. So you follow the money. 4 years, $50 million. They paid him a ton guaranteed. They have a creative coordinator, Josh McDaniels, who I believe will be able to get him the ball in multiple ways. And they don't really have other guys who are going to demand it.
I'm with you on that. I agree with everything you said. Derek, what about you? Hunter Henry or Jonnu Smith? Who are you going after in fantasy?
I'd like to take option number C and say neither.
Yeah.
But I mean, if I'm picking one, it's Jonnu. I mean, for the athleticism, and he could do more with the target volume that he's going to be given. If given the choice, I don't want either one of these guys, honestly. Like, New England is their entire roster and set of pass catchers right now is going to be set up to feed nobody. As far as they're going to play matchups, they're going to play multiple personnels, they're going to sit here and pick on. This is what New England does every damn year. Every year. And because we love Jonnu so much, and I love Jonnu last year, the dude's been efficient. He's a monster. Like, super athletic. Love the guy. But I can't sit here and peg him for any kind of type, like, major volume or target share. We're talking about target shares enough to get you in the top 12. Like, him and Henry, regardless of what we think of their athleticism, could absolutely cannibalize each other. So, honestly, like, for me, if I'm given the choice, the answer is neither. If I got to pick one, it's Jonnu.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at, Derek. I mean, I'm not crazy about these guys. If Jonnu slides to me, though, I'm happy taking him. And I want to wrap up with one final question here that I've got for both of you. Derek, we'll start with you on this one. Obviously, this is the year where you want to go out and get Travis Kelce, Darren Waller, George Kittle. But if you're unable to get one of those three guys, who is the tight end that you are trying to leave your draft with?
Much to David's hate, it's Adam Troutman. I mean, I want him, and if it's not him... in my exposures right now, for a lot of different reasons on best ball, Cole Kmet's in that top 5, because I think if the opportunity flips, the opportunity is going to be massive, and his ADP is not baking any of that into it right now. So it's Kmet, it's Troutman, and I love Gerald Everett. Like, he has been an efficiency monster over the last few seasons. Tyler Higbee, people need to get off this train. Tyler Higbee is not going to be a thing. People are falling on the fallacy sword yet again. I wasn't in on Tyler Higbee. I'm not going to be in on Tyler Higbee again this year because, yes, whether you hate to hear it, Bryson Hopkins is super damn athletic. He's probably going to run routes. And people want to talk about 12 personnel. These guys cannibalize each other. So no to Tyler Higbee. Just stay away, man. But if I got to pick one guy, based off of all the reasons and stuff we've talked about this entire episode, I love Gerald Everett. Athletic as hell, and Seattle is going to utilize him this year.
Yeah, and the thing that's crazy, if you look at the overall numbers from tight ends in Seattle, they're great year over year. But the problem is, when's the last time we've seen somebody play tight end for 16 full games? Like, we see these flashes from Will Dissly and Jacob Hollister and Jimmy Graham when he was over there. And, like, Russell Wilson likes throwing to the tight ends. If Gerald Everett can stay healthy for an entire season, I'm with you. You know, tight end 1 written all over him. David, same question to you, though.
Coordinator that they spin up in the second round for him. That's the offensive coordinator, and he landed with them. Like, I'm not drawing like parallels in crayon here. This is real. This happened.
Yep, Gerald Everett, he is a phenomenal target, and it wouldn't surprise me if that's who David's got to talk about as well. But David, who's the guy that you're trying to get outside of the big three?
Yeah, I think we're definitely in agreement in some spots. It's a little bit different answer in Dynasty and Redraft. In Dynasty, it's Noah Fant, no matter what. Outside of the big 4, we'll say, in Dynasty. And in Redraft, I still think Noah Fant is a better pick than TJ Hawkinson and Mark Andrews if you want to go the middle tier, because Hawkinson and Andrews are going while some guys like Chase Claypool or, Ayuk are still on the board. Don't do that. If you can wait till you take Ayuk or Chase Claypool and then take Noah Fant the next round, that's just a much better pairing in my eyes. So it's only like a 1-round ADP. It makes a major difference, I think, from like 6th to 7th, we're talking in terms of redraft. But if you want to go the late tight end route, I agree. Gerald Everett is one of my 3. I only have 3 if I'm going tight end late or getting in best ball a second tight end. It's Jonnu Smith, who I believe has all of the tools, has the money paid, has the system, who's going to get the ball in his hands, can be one of the top 2 target getters on that team. Evan Ingram, I mean, guys, just look at the production in the past. He's averaged over 11 points per game, 3 out of 4 years. The drop rate, touchdown rate were astronomically low. He got hit bad by 2020, just like all of us. He was 2020 in a nutshell, was Evan Ingram's year. That's almost never going to happen again. His drop rate will normalize. His touchdown rate will normalize. And then Gerald Everett, like you said, progressed in 4 straight years, has all of the athleticism, was a good college producer. And Russell Wilson, man, he throws touchdowns, 30 straight in 4 years, 40 last year. Who's the wide receiver 3 on this team? They just released Tamori and Terry. Dwayne Eskridge, like a small little guy, didn't have the greatest profile. Gerald Everett is looking like a sure bet to be number 3 on this team in targets. So I think
how about
we're in
that?
agreement. I expect his ADP to continue to climb all year.
We started off the show butting heads and disagreeing on just about anything, and then we wrap it all up with this nice, solid gift wrapped. Go out and get Gerald Everett, and we're all agreeing on something. So look at that! It's like we became friends over the last hour and came to a nice, fun agreement. Want to thank both of you guys so much for coming on today. Before we sign off, David, let everyone know where they can find you on Twitter and what you've got working on right now.
Yeah, pretty much all my content's on Twitter. The old blog spots collecting dust. I'm trying to get the new website up by the beginning of the year. It's under construction right now. But if you want to follow me on Twitter, get access to all my tight end content. Everything I do is free. It's at Guru Fantasy World, no O in world.
Awesome. And then Derek, why don't you let everyone know where they can find you and what you've got happening over at FTN?
Yeah, you follow me on Twitter at dbro_FFB. Adam Pfeiffer and I have got the Fade the Chalk podcast going in the ramp up 3 to 4 times a week. Will be 5 times a week in season. And over at FTN Fantasy, man, I mean, it's all the things, all the stuff. Right now I'm going through head coaching, offensive coordinator scheme profiles right now for all 32 teams. I've got breakouts, booms, bets and everything like that. That series is wrapping up over at FTN Fantasy. And yeah, like I said, man, head over to FTN Fantasy. With my content, Matthew Friedman is in the house. He's throwing in bets into the bet tracker right now. We got all kinds of good stuff. And with all the tools coming up for this season, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, you guys are killing it over there. Thank you both so much for coming on, and thank you for everyone that tuned into episode 6 of the Launchpad. I love the idea of just expanding people's reach and helping them break into new audiences, and that's what I hope to provide to my guests every single week. So next week, I'll be joined with Matthew McCarthy from Gridiron Rating. He's also a Fantasy Pros NFL expert, and we're going to have CBS's Heath Cummings coming on as well. We'll be highlighting the best and worst values at each position, so be sure to tune into that episode, and we will see you next week.